Hi, everyone. This is Tom Salemi of DeviceTalks. We're here joined by David Niewolny of Nvidia. He is the Director of Business Development for Healthcare and Medical. David, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Tom. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about what Nvidia is doing in the healthcare MedTech space.
So we're looking at the future of MedTech, and I can't think of a company that's more invested in that than Nvidia. You folks are doing a lot of impressive work, a lot of impressive medical device companies, and really seem to be, over the last couple of years, driving this sector forward with your partnerships. So we're talking about surgical robotics, a lot of other things as well. But how did you come to join Nvidia?
Well, it's, kind of an interesting story, Tom. And, from a career perspective, I've always been in technology. So in MedTech, but on the technology side of MedTech.
Okay.
And, I started my career with a semiconductor company that had a wide portfolio of connectivity products and just kind of that passion for healthcare and frankly, using technology to make a fundamental change in the way healthcare is delivered. One of the areas that, I initially saw was, couldn't believe that all these medical devices in the early 2000s were not connected to the internet. It's like the internet was growing, they weren't connected.
Right.
But, that first step was, how do we actually get into those design cycles and begin embedding connectivity into those devices? And, really we spent, frankly, a 10-year journey connecting all of these medical devices where I just realized now we have another problem. No one really thought about where is all of this data going.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, that kind of had me join a small embedded software company that was looking at the interoperability challenge called RTI. And then with RTI, putting together partnerships, I saw a lot of that data was going to reside in the cloud. So I spent, the previous 3 years to Nvidia at AWS and really learning kind of about that digital transformation at the IT level. And then
Still medical for AWS?
Still medical. So I was leading up their marketing for the medical and healthcare side of that practice. And then strangely enough, as Kimberly and team were growing from healthcare and life sciences, they were looking for somebody with medical device and MedTech experience. And from that, having the cloud experience and then, frankly, learning about what I knew as a gaming company,
Mm-hmm.
really diving deep, and Kimberly's vision and Jensen's vision for what they wanted to do and transform healthcare made so much sense. And I also saw frankly, even though they were platforming, the cloud companies were still very fragmented. You had a couple of them and you had to choose your platform. The fact that Nvidia has this vision to essentially platform across all clouds, all embedded compute, all data center compute, frankly, kind of gave, not only healthcare, but all industries what they generally need, a standard platform to begin building upon. And, it's just been an absolutely exciting opportunity. Frankly, kind of watching this organization grow. And we're going through a lot of the same transitions that our customers are going through, transitioning from, I'd say, a hardware-centric model to something that is frankly more software-centric, because I think we see our customers investing a lot more time, effort, and energy, and they should be in software.
Talk a bit about that problem of the different cloud platforms that medical device companies have to work with. What problem does that create for the medical device companies? It's just the sheer fact that Medtronic will be in this one and Boston Scientific will be in that one, and we don't have that universal connection that we need to make this all work.
Well, I'd say the good news at frankly, kind of a device level, it doesn't matter as much. I think it matters much more when you start getting to this new transition that we're trying to bring at the edge. Because at the edge, which is, think the hospital, it is the OR, it is the radiology suite, it is the ICU. Rarely do you ever standard on one single company's devices.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you actually begin creating this kind of idea of an integrated OR or an integrated ICU?
Right.
Unless it's a single company kind of developing that end to end, which frankly, that's just really hard to do. Each specific company, each specific entity kind of has their own core competency in terms of what they're building. And I think what I talked about in some of the talks today is the importance of an ecosystem. And the only way you can get an ecosystem is to begin building a platform. And I kind of liken it to what we saw in a couple other industry revolutions was computing. It wasn't until kind of Windows came up with the operating system that you had this explosion of software built on top of it. The same came with the phone with what Apple did in terms of their Apple App Store and their iOS. And then also what happened with, kind of Google and Android, and really kind of opened up that ecosystem for all these app developers. And, that same sort of transition is happening in healthcare today, but you needed a company to verticalize that platform. Unlike these other two competing transitions that we've seen, each of those was standard across all industries.
Okay.
And I think what we're looking at now is there's unique nuances specifically to these highly regulated industries like medical that you need to, one, and this is what Nvidia is doing, take what we've built as a core and then build on top of it and really verticalize that. And we're really doing that, Tom, in kind of three key areas that are all, frankly, super important to building out this AI ecosystem. The first one is that edge that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So having that kind of device connectivity, real time, low latency, bringing AI, frankly, to the surgeons, to the radiologists, to the intensive care unit and the nurses that are using that. But then also what that ends up driving is this whole idea of software defined AI enabled. And with that, you realize I need an AI strategy. I need a data strategy, which then brings us to the second computer, which is for training. So you need a training computer to actually ingest all of the data, start building models based on it that can then be deployed on this edge system. And then the third computer, which we just introduced this past year at GTC, is the idea of a simulation computer. And that kind of ties it all together. In these highly regulated industries, very rarely do you actually want to go forward and test on human patients. You'd much rather do your design, development, testing in a fully simulated environment. So we've basically been providing full simulated environments that now give you access to synthetic data, lets you actually build your policies and build your models and test your models in a simulated environment before you actually ever even deploy it to that edge device. So foundationally, we're trying to build this platform specifically for MedTech. We kind of call it the 3 computers for physical AI, but one of the best embodiments of physical AI is MedTech.
So with those 3 pieces in place, where do we go from here? What does the vision look like from Nvidia's perspective, and what does the MedTech industry look like in 5 to 10 years?
Very great questions. I think, first and foremost, you need adoption of this platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, different parts of the hospital, I mentioned kind of the ICU, the radiology suite, and the OR. If you look at kind of the way the industry's evolved in terms of adoption of AI, medical imaging is one of the first. And very rarely do they need, in many cases, real time. A lot of the AI that they're using is model development, it's perception AI, it's doing analytics on an image.
Mm-hmm.
They have platforms that they've already built. The GEs, the Siemens, and the Philips have been, at this for a period of time. But you look at the area that right now is making the biggest impact. I think, we all know that ORs are the biggest revenue generators for a hospital. We know that these ORs are also, basically, this is mission critical type work. So you have highly regulated, mission critical type work and an opportunity to bring some significant efficiency. This entire group has never really, I'd say, considered AI and have a platform. So they're starting from scratch. So it's a very great opportunity for us to get into the ground floor with both the startups as well as the large strategics and build out that ecosystem I mentioned with a platform approach. And that's really kind of directionally where we're going. And if you think of actually taking that one step further, all of these edge devices and the connectivity that, again, I kind of started my career in, you can begin now thinking almost as the whole hospital is a robot. All of the information coming from the surgical suite is actually interconnected to the data coming from the radiology suite, coming from the data from the ICU, that you start thinking of some of the analysis that you can do, and the low hanging fruit, frankly, is just operationally. I mean, if you start thinking a little bit about a hospital almost as a manufacturing facility, that things need to come in and come out better on the other side. And how do you do that as efficiently as possible? And that's, frankly, I'd say kind of getting into where do you see the next 5 to 10 years? Frankly, I see, the entire medical device world kind of thinking of themselves as robots. And we think of it as physical robots, which could be something like a humanoid robot, but it also could be, something like a surgical robot, or even just a device in the room that's actually aggregating data from a number of devices and, making suggestions, augmenting, a lot of the staff that is within that environment. And kind of the second area that we think of is the idea of digital robots. And we think of digital robots, think of that as digital agents.
Mm-hmm.
And these digital agents are going to be, essentially there to offer advice, offering guidance, make suggestions all the way out through either surgical procedures or in the case of, an ICU, make suggestions for, nurses in terms of how to prioritize, the beds in their specific ward. So it's, a pretty kind of foundational change to the way, hospitals are doing business today, which is so people heavy. You're now basically going to take the people that you have there and, frankly, give them superpowers. I mean, they're going to be able to, operate so much more efficiently while I think dedicating actually more face time to the patient as opposed to a lot of the back office work and some of the other things that they have to be working on.
Well, it must be satisfying to sort of come around full circle and start checking some of the boxes that you started making a list of at the start of your career. So that's exciting stuff. David, thanks for joining us on the Future of MedTech series.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure talking and, wonderful being here at DeviceTalks.
Thank you.